Yo, it's MC Devi here. You are listening to the Bayat Beat podcast, exposing the truth as we see it. This is the podcast where a son, a mother of one, and a grandmother of three open up each other's eyes to the matrix, look at the modern day world from the perspective of three different generations, follow, laugh, and brilliantly analyze the tragic comedy we know as the human experience. Music you are listening to is by my late and great grandfather Saadun El Bayati. May he rest in peace. Yo. I'm your host, Devin A.C. Dada, also known as MC Devi. What? And I'm joined by the Reverend Summer El Bayati and the matriarch Barbara El Bayati.
Hello.
Our topic today is God and consumerism. Ooh.
Deep.
It's very deep.
Very deep.
Very scary. I don't even know what that means. What does that mean? What is God in the context of this episode?
Let the Reverend answer that one.
Well, God, the concept of God is found in many different cultures, in many different ways. But some theologians refer to God as spirit, universe, the ultimate reality, the divine. Some see it as feminine, as goddess. So, those are just some of the ways that God is described.
And nature, is God omnipotent in this?
Omnipotent?
Yeah.
Well, it depends on different peoples and their different way of seeing God. Some may see God as the divine within. Some may see it as the Buddha nature, right? Others may see God as omnipotent and all-knowing, omniscient, right? And outside ourselves. Others may see God as experienced in nature, like you said.
Mm-hmm.
So God has many forms across cultures, across religions. And so when we speak of God, that is for every listener to sort of reflect upon as we speak.
Okay.
As we discuss.
Well, for me, in this episode, it would probably have to be God would be in the context of nature. Because I think when we're talking about consumerism, it often is at the detriment to the natural world when we're producing all this waste. So for me in this episode, God would have to be the mystical light or the animistic view of God. So with that said, what is God in consumerism? What does it mean?
Well,
we're looking at each other.
Well, when we first came up with this concept, I wanted to call it God in consumerism.
Yeah, God. Did I not say that? God in consumerism.
Okay. Well, I thought you said God and consumerism.
Oh, my bad.
That was my idea.
Your idea. You didn't like God in consumerism. Why didn't you like God
I'm
in
not sure that
versus
I really
God and?
understand it. Because that implies that consuming is something that God might like.
So when I had thought of God in consumerism, it was looking at the way people find God or the ultimate reality, the divine spirit, the universe, what have you, nature, in consumption, right? This act of consumption. And you could look at the act of consumption in the form of shopping, in the form of waste, in the form of gluttonous behaviors, right? So there's different ways to look at consumerism, I think. And when, for some, the experience of God is experience of love, right? So they may just refer to God as love. And so when you look at God, people searching for God, searching for that feeling of happiness, of nirvana, of elation that they might feel when they are connected to a divine presence, then when they're searching for that in consumerism, then and trying to emulate those same feelings, that's where it might be a problem.
So God is supplemented in consumerism, in consuming, in getting your next dopamine shot of purchasing something, is what you're saying.
Yeah, that's a part of it. That there are many clergy that I've spoken with that believe that the fact that we've become such a consumeristic society means that people are not searching for God, the divine. They're not searching for that in other ways, in other forms.
So they reach ecstasis through shopping, for example.
Right.
Is that what you're implying?
Right. That is one way of looking at it. And then Devin alluded to the fact that is creating problems for the environment, for nature, right? Because you have people consuming so much. And what we find is that now that's created this movement, the zero waste movement, the minimalist movement as well, where people are rejecting consumerism and saying, hey, enough is enough. Our landfills are filled to the brim. We have too much plastic in the environment. It doesn't break down for, 100,000 years or what have you, right? So, so we've got the, reuse, reduce, recycle movement, but it's taking it now to the extreme in which there are many people who are now looking at let's minimize what we have, let's stop consuming, let's reuse, taking our containers to a restaurant, for instance, and packaging it ourselves versus using styrofoam containers or what have you. So you're seeing a lot more of this zero waste lifestyle being
implemented
and promoted. You can find so much on it, like just YouTube videos easily. So,
well, look at, they say that there are far too many fabrics in landfills from used clothing.
Right.
And we've tried to pawn off used clothing from this country on certain other nations who don't want our stuff anymore. And we like to look nice.
Yes.
So, but the fabrics and styles need to be better in order for us to not have to continually replace our clothing and end up dumping stuff in landfills. I mean, even towels that we use in the bathroom, I mean, those things don't last very long anymore. No matter how nice they look, they don't really last very long.
We've gone through a huge radical change from 100 years ago, 1920s, right? That's when the small consumerist era started happening, right?
I believe that's when the beginning of advertising and encouraging people to buy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And now we have, fast fashion. We have stores and brands that are geared towards purchase this for a little while, get rid of it, get the next piece of clothing, the next item, and shop all the time.
Shop
via
till
the
you
internet.
drop.
That's right. Via the internet, in the malls. I mean, it's
free 1-day shipping, baby.
Exactly. So, and then what is all the packaging surrounding all of that? The all the fuel that is being used to ship things. It's just it's becoming our obsession, or has become our obsession. And so how do we find the true meaning of God, divine, spirit, universe, love, ultimate reality, if we are constantly being falling, I guess,
into the trap?
Into the trap, yes. Being seduced by shopping and purchasing
Devin
more.
won't remember this, but you will remember after 9/11. Our then president, the second President Bush, advised us not to be afraid, but to continue shopping.
Continue shopping.
That was a huge message. And since President Bush thought that God had told him what to do in rescuing the Iraqis from Saddam Hussein, his comforting words of shopping would appear to be directly related to God's vision, perhaps.
Right. Right. Well, there in ancient times, and probably in the present as well, there are many who are in power that believe that God put them there, and that somehow they're closer to God than the rest of us because of that. So kings and queens used to claim that, and people,
be divinely ordained.
And people bought it. So why not presidents of the United States as well claiming that?
Okay, so you're saying Bush told everybody to shop. Yes. So is shopping a mechanism used to maybe keep society in a drone-like state? Like robot workers?
Right. That's a good point.
Like Brave New World, right?
Yes. Great book.
It's continued. It's very soothing in some respects.
To shop.
Yes.
I love shopping.
Feel good.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah, it makes you feel good, right? Yeah. It feels good. You're like, ooh, that new shirt, that new lipstick.
I look good.
Yeah. Exactly. And yet what we're finding is most clergy would tell you that a lot of people are not showing up to various services, whatever they may be, across religions, right? That people would rather go shopping at that time, or if they meet on the weekends or what have you, or they might want to go out to restaurants instead, go to the movies, do anything but spend time with however they look at the meaning of God, right?
Okay, so you just touched on a point. Consumerism is just not shopping. It's watching movies, going to restaurants, spending that green piece of paper that you struggled your whole month to get.
Yes.
And that you'll continue struggling if you don't save it up.
Right. Exactly. Which brings me to the point that we have a crisis in this country, in our culture, right? In that people are having a difficult time with budgeting, right?
Mhm.
And they're spending too much, and as you alluded to, not saving as much, right? And so they're having to look to, if they attend some sort of, spiritual group, they're having to look to that spiritual group for guidance on how to budget, how to save, how to stop with all of this consumerism, right?
Mhm.
So, in effect, we are having the various religions are having to figure out ways to help people who are in despair because they now find themselves heavily in debt because they have
They found God
participated
in consumerism.
Exactly. So that's why I like God in consumerism versus God and consumerism.
Oh, well, that answers that question.
Mhm.
There's a very interesting, I was listening to a podcast, which Graham Hancock was on. He's a archaeologist, very famous in the archaeologist world. And I think he's part of the caucus that believes there was an ancient civilization much more advanced than us before us, which would make a lot of sense with the Sumerian tablets articulating the whole entire solar system and all this evidence of advanced agriculture in the Amazon with the terracotta fertile, right? I don't know. But his idea is that this ancient civilization was more spiritual and they were more in tune with the world. They were more psychedelic, hippie, kind of
ancient hippies.
And I thought that was very interesting. And it seems as though humanity is wanting that now. And did that ancient civilization have to go what we went through now to get there? Or what we're going through now?
Right.
So I'm wondering if this is a repeat and we just haven't learned
our lessons.
But I also find that an interesting point in the conversation of, was there an ancient civilization before us
before the Sumerians, for example?
Before the Sumerians, all across the world, though. Like, there's this idea that there was ancient civilizations more advanced than us before us, then there was some great natural disaster like the Great Flood, which isn't just talked about in biblical texts, it's talked about all over the world,
right,
in all ancient civilizations. And so I don't know where I was going. Where was I?
Well, I think you were wondering if there were more ancient civilizations that went through something like that we're going through, right? This spirituality, then, feeling more spiritually connected, whatever that means, right? Then getting into more of a consumeristic mindset, and then returning back to
spirituality.
To
So it's an interesting idea. I know when you look at the Native American culture, they did not want to advance because they could foresee that their culture would be destroyed if they did advance.
What do you mean by advance?
Advance in terms of the Western
idea,
construct of advancement, because they were advanced spiritually,
right?
And to them, that was purpose, that was meaning, that was fulfillment,
right?
So it's kind of ironic that now we're not fulfilled as a society, and they were filled hundreds of years ago.
Right. Interesting.
I was reading an article, but I didn't finish it
Okay.
a couple of days ago on debt in ancient Samaria,
Mm-hmm.
and how the government would periodically wipe out all the debt.
They would wipe it out.
Yeah, because it was the government in control of everything rather than private banks, for example. So the Western model is very different. The modern Western model is very different. I think the article indicated, I believe is it by Ellen Brown? She's a famous author on debt and economics. So I'll have to look it up. I'm sorry, I don't have that recall exactly, but the Chinese government is in control of the debt, so they're perfectly capable of wiping out debt, creating money, getting their people through things. And our model is very privatized, and has not been working so well. I mean, we even had debtors' prisons.
Yeah.
And I think people fear that they will come back. The debtors' prisons were sometimes referred to as the poorhouse, and people were banished to the poorhouse to live, and that's really not a very good model.
Yeah, that's very scary. Keeps
it's
people
very
scared.
scary because when you have privatized banks and banking, they encourage people to go into debt, which is, why so many of us are in such a mess.
Yep. Well, it keeps you efficient, doesn't it? Keeps you on your toes, right? You're in debt. You don't get to smoke weed on the couch. You gotta keep working.
You have to keep working for the man. Enslaved by debt.
Yeah.
It's indentured servitude.
Right.
This is true.
And I think that's why you see so many younger people who are looking at this idea of debt and saying no to debt and trying to retire by the age of, 35. They're choosing lifestyles in which they are traveling the world and participating in the gig economy, right? They're participating by having this job and this job and this job that they can take with them, and then experiencing the world and enjoying life and not being in debt and not having a mortgage and a car and
probably no health insurance.
Yeah, probably not.
Yeah, screw it.
Yeah.
Who needs health insurance?
Right. Well,
people
in
do
this country,
eventually.
apparently we do. Yeah. Yeah.
So, how does consumerism, in essence, rip us away from our divine feminine? In this case, it would be my divine masculine, which I could answer after, maybe, if you want to answer this. So how does it rip us away from our divine feminine and masculine traits? I feel like we've answered it a little by keeping us in a drone state.
But focusing on the feminine, that's interesting. That's an interesting way of looking at it. When I think of the divine feminine, right, I think of the goddess, I think of nature, I think of being connected to nature, and then I think of things like if we're taking consumerism and all that we are creating in the environment that is hurting the environment or Mother Nature or Gaia, right? Then I think in terms of ecofeminism, right? ecofeminism being dealing with ecology and feminism and looking at the earth as the womb, so to speak, right? The earth is the mother. The earth is who gives us life and can take away life via earthquakes, hurricanes. Isn't there a hurricane now off of the East Coast?
The Bahamas.
The Bahamas
right now, right?
Rainforest.
Right. Floods, right? Torrential rains, tornadoes. And fires, yeah. Here in California, fires, yeah. And earthquakes. And so I look at every time we are hurting Mother Nature, hurting our earth, ecofeminism connects it to the idea of that is the feminine. And when we're hurting it, like, you know, hurting it with missiles and bombs and all this horrible air that we're creating, right? The carbon emissions, right? In the air, we are hurting the feminine, and that in fact is because of misogynistic views, right? So hatred towards women, hatred towards the feminine. And so that's what I think of when you ask that question. I go directly to ecofeminism, and what does that mean?
Okay. I guess what I think of relating to masculine is that consumerism sort of breaks down male and the female in some ways. And what I mean by that is we no longer as men have to go out and hunt for our food. We don't have to go out and what are some manly things? We don't have to go fish. You know what I mean?
Right. Right. In the past, you
we don't
used
have to
be
fight.
The hunters to go out and
we're
get
the warriors.
Food,
and what consumerism does is it says we provide for you now. The corporations provide for you.
Right.
You don't need to be a man anymore. And that hurts us.
Oh,
because as men, that's how we exercise our masculinity. You know, we do sports and we throw spears.
Yes.
And we're comics. We make fun of shit.
So you're going to consume lots of food and have beer bellies because you consume a lot of beer.
We
consume television.
How we exercise our masculine is from a hungry stomach, but when our stomach is always full, how can we exercise our masculine? How can we fight with our friends? How can we engage in arguments and politics and all this stuff that makes a man, a rational male, when everything is handed to us on a silver and even golden platter at times, when we're born with a silver spoon? How can we exercise that?
That's a good point. You know, I was watching University of California television. They have a TV station, and it was featuring some professors who did some research into people's homes and why they had so much. So they've consumed so much, and it's all over their home. And in the garage, and just bursting at the seams, right, with stuff. And they brought up that idea of that we, way back when, were hunters and gatherers, right? And the more things you had kept your clan, right, your tribe, right, safe and protected. And so it's almost like we're protecting ourselves by having so much, because it tells us when we look around, wow,
you're wealthy,
I'm safe, I'm wealthy, I'm secure. And that's not necessarily true, because most people are 2 paychecks away from being homeless.
Yes. And
So
that's an interesting point you bring up, because the Spartans would argue otherwise from that. They would argue that feeling safe is within your friends and your family and the warriors that fight beside you. So I think that's a very interesting point. A Stoic's view on that would be more minimalistic, and possibly same with a Buddhist view, such as a Zen Buddhist, like a samurai, which I think is very interesting. The polarizations in cultures, right? It's an interesting thing to think about.
Yeah.
You've been quiet over there.
I've been quiet over there. The feminine, from my point of view, is the ability to give birth, or the desire to give birth, and the fact that we're becoming, again, increasingly under the control of the males in our societies worldwide. It seems to be getting worse for women all the time. And, you know, if a woman doesn't have a right to her own body, then maybe she needs to go out shopping to be happy.
To feel better.
To feel like she's somebody.
Right.
So,
and shopping is not masculine and not feminine, which I think is very interesting. It is a neutral gender thing to do. So when you're shopping, you're not feeling hindered by masculine powers, right?
Probably.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Now here's something
Unless
else.
the masculine power is saying don't spend lots of money.
Don't spend lots of money. True.
Right.
True. Now here's something else. Does consumerism in fact promote misogyny? Because again, using the Spartans as an example, there was female Spartan warriors beside the men, and they were, you know, the warriors, because they were warriors. Warriors is you're a warrior if you're a warrior, right? So again, with my question, does consumerism promote misogyny?
Well, I think if you look at the fashion industry, you can definitely say that it does promote misogyny, because you have people dictating what women should wear and what is considered attractive. And what we see that can be attractive or considered attractive would be high heels, right? High heels are not fun to wear. They don't feel good. They hurt people's feet. A lot of people will say, oh no, this is great, I love it. But, you know, if you're flat-footed like I am, it's not so fun. But heels, and we fall, you know, in that trap as well, because when we want to feel dressed up, we wear heels. You know, I wear heels, right? So and so I think in that way it can be, because it's focusing on a woman's looks, right? I was talking to some people, male and female, and they it was interesting. It was interesting that we had that sort of discussion of the fact that when you go to work, for instance, right, a man can wear the same things over and over again, right? And you wouldn't even notice if he was wearing, you know, if everything was pretty neutral, right? You wouldn't notice if he was wearing the same pants and the same shirt,
tie.
right? Yeah. And tie, maybe you might notice, because that has different colors and everything and designs.
I'm wearing a pink tie today.
Right. But with women, and, you know, and I recognize that we are looking at that sort of the dual, the male female, so I'm just speaking in terms of that, right? Those social constructs. That it's interesting because the female or the woman has to constantly be concerned about what she's wearing and making sure, did I wear that outfit the other day? I can't wear that outfit again, because others will notice. And maybe that's, maybe males won't notice, but females will notice what other females wear. So we keep each other, right, in check on behalf of the men, on behalf of a misogynistic culture, right? We keep each other in check. Make sure that you are not wearing the same thing 2 days in a row or 3 days in a row, because if you do, somebody might be thinking, oh, did you stay up? Oh, where did you spend the night if you were wearing the same outfit you wore yesterday? Huh? Right? Why did you have to? Did you stay up all night? What were you doing? Partying? Were you with some guy? What's going on? Right?
None of your business.
Right, exactly. But that is the way our culture is, right? So yeah, that is a sort of a misogynistic agenda.
Interesting. Interesting.
See, I can have interesting conversations with others too.
To me, wow. To me, that's very just unmanly. A man is concerned about himself and other men. So, I guess we're still on that topic of, does it promote misogyny? And yes, it does in that context. But does it promote misogyny in men? For men to be misogynistic, men are walking around the shopping mall and they see bikini mannequins and mannequins in short shorts, and soon the shorts will be even shorter as they've gotten shorter and shorter and shorter. So in that light, does it promote misogyny? I'd say yes. It's a propaganda tool, right?
Probably. And that, well, I think that years ago men didn't used to shop very much.
Yeah.
It was a woman's thing.
It was a woman's thing.
It's changed.
Yeah, it's changed. It's changed in my lifetime. Starting when? I'm not even sure at this point. But it was not, you didn't see that many, well, we didn't have indoor malls. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a biggie.
We had downtowns, and you had to go to various individual stores.
Yeah.
So you would see men at auto supplies stores and
or the
things
gun
like
shop.
That. Yeah. Yeah, or at
fishing and tackle, right?
Right, or building supplies.
Yeah, that's where I'd be.
Right.
Hell yeah.
So tool department.
Tool department.
Yeah.
Where's my hammer?
Well, I once took your uncle to Home Depot. Okay, we didn't have big stores like Home Depot when I was growing up. And he was in the tool department just checking everything out and looking. And there was a woman with a young child, and the child was crying. And one of the salespeople said to me, "This isn't a toy store." And I said, my son thinks it's a toy store. I mean, he was like 19 or 20.
Right.
And he was enjoying every minute of our time there. So
I wonder, because you did mention that there were individual stores, and then we got the department store, and then the department store was also incorporating the men's department, the tools, right? I think of Sears, right? Doesn't Sears have a tool department? And so how interesting to sort of incorporate men into this culture of consumerism and shopping, so that they don't tell their wives, right? Don't shop. No
We
buying
don't have
anything.
we can't afford it.
Exactly. And so you start to get them and then into it, and then you've got the shopping malls.
Well, and people paid cash.
Food.
They didn't have credit cards in those days. They might have an account. But I don't think everybody had
Which was
them.
credit
Yeah.
in a way. Yeah.
Yeah.
I hate shopping. I've hated shopping since I was a kid.
I
And
thought you
think
liked it.
You
know
just
this
said
about
you
me.
liked to shop.
No. I like shopping online.
Oh.
But I'm saying when I'm going in
online.
stores,
Yeah.
it's all those
You don't enjoy
bright
it.
lights and all the people, and I can't strut my stuff. You know what I mean? It's just like, I've always not liked that.
You feel
But
uncomfortable.
Yeah, even when I was a kid. And but I've been conditioned more and more into shopping.
With online shopping?
Not just with online shopping, but I'm more used to it, going in stores. But where when I was a kid, I couldn't handle it. And so I'm wondering if, when you're a child, the divine masculine or feminine is hyperactive to the point where when you're a kid, you can't even tell between masculine and feminine. Kids are asexual in that matter. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering, as I've grown up, with the beating on me and the propaganda and the, socialization has that light diminished a little bit. Now I can handle it a little bit. You know what I mean? I can go in there and purchase my I don't know, spinach.
Yeah.
Spinach is good for you.
Where's the guns on the walls? Oh, I don't need to see a gun. No spear. There's a nice painting of Greece over there. Woo.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do. Well, right. I mean, you're a product of this society, and the society has been, getting you excited about the newest iPhone or
iPhone
right?
X.
Exactly. Or what else? The latest ear contraption for listening.
Oh, headphones.
Headphones. Thank you. I was gonna say earbuds, but I'm looking at you and you've got headphones on.
These
so
are cheap.
I can't remember what they're called.
These are cheap headphones. I'm just gonna let everybody know.
Okay, that's good. As
I'm
long
just
as they
letting
work.
everybody know they're cheap. They're really good. I'm not gonna advertise.
Yeah, don't advertise. It's fine.
I'm not gonna
But
do
they're
that.
cheap
That
and
would be
good.
kind of against the podcast.
Right.
I feel like
Cheap and good. You bought them for the podcast, though.
I did.
Yeah. Because the earbuds, right, the ones that go inside your ear would not work for
They
a
would
podcast.
hurt
Yeah,
a
that
lot.
won't work. Yeah, so and you had to consume in order to participate in the consumerist culture in order to do this, or looking at the computer, the latest computer, right? The latest gadget. Gadgets are really, really big, right? In consumerism. I mean, let's just
and they
not
will
even
put you in debt.
They
right.
will.
And let's not even go there with Black Friday and all the hype with regard to that.
That's crazy. People die.
Right, yeah.
In the name of God we trust.
Right. That's on our money. Exactly.
That's crazy.
Well, and there was an
Illuminati. Just kidding. Keep going.
You had alluded to the idea of money, right? And other governments controlling or being able to wipe out debt, and that we're more privatized. And banks are the ones that are in control of how much money is circulated in this country. So I wonder if that was taken away from them, then would that help us, right? Would the government then be able to help wipe out debt and set people free to be closer to the divine energy, to find meaning in life through other avenues, instead of placating themselves with shopping, right? Or feeling good by going out and going to the store, right? And seeing the neighborhood if people make friends with the neighborhood people in the store, the cashiers and what have you, right? I know you talked about your mother, my grandmother, going out and having a good time going to the grocery store, right?
Yeah, she made friends everywhere she shopped. So she went to the butcher shop, she went to the grocery store. She was always very friendly. The drugstore, the pharmacist, everyone knew her. And she might go out 3 times a day, to do her little errands and see people. That was a big part of her social life.
Right. It's connecting with others,
Yeah.
right?
Well, it's like the Trader Joe's I used to go to in Huntington Beach. That was part of my social life. There were women like me, older women, who went in there every single day. There were some of the business women in that shopping center who told me that they went to Trader Joe's every single day. It was just part of being friendly, and everyone knew everyone else. It was nice.
And there's a store that has learned how to be different and how to make sure to connect with the customer.
They engage in friendly conversation with you when they're well trained.
It's very interesting. And they must recognize as a corporation, as a business, right, that is a way to create repeat customers, right? And then sometimes you go into other places, not just stores, restaurants, where they don't train their people to really give great customer service, and you don't feel welcome, and you're like, why do I want to come back here? And they don't try to connect with you, even if it's in a local area. Like, you're off the beaten path in this shopping center, off the beaten path. Like, you are not in the main area.
Yeah,
so
you're not
you
that
probably
cool.
have a certain clientele that lives in a certain radius. Don't you think you should connect with them? Just saying. Right? But I digress. The idea, though, is that maybe your mother, my grandmother, was connecting with people, and in that way, connecting with others can be a way in which we describe God, right? Or the divine, right? When you find connections with others, that's why it's so important to for many people to be connected in some sort of a group, whether it be a spiritual group or a gaming group or showing classic car group or I don't know, dancing. Yeah, people need a tribe because they need to feel connected, right? And they need to feel as though their lives are meaningful and matter to others. And especially if you are alone, living alone or what have you, you may need that, right?
Namaste. My divine light recognizes your divine light.
Exactly. And that divine light can then become one by this connection that we have. And this really, in this culture, we look into people's eyes, right? And to get to feel that sense of connection. And then if you have somebody who's not looking into your eyes, you can feel disconnected. At least I can. And that's been sort of my experience because I was reared in this culture. And I recognize that there are people from other cultures that don't experience that, or maybe a matter of respect not to look into your eyes or what have you. But for me, that connection is felt by not just knowing that somebody's really listening to you or you're really listening to them, but that connection of looking into each other's eyes.
Yeah.
It's interesting. And, they will say what the eyes are the window to the soul, or something like that, right?
They have a sparkle to them. Like, you can tell somebody from their eyes. You can tell how disciplined they are. You can tell how happy they are. You can tell their emotional state,
right,
or their spiritual state,
right,
as it were, right?
There's another topic.
Oh, the eyes.
Spirituality and emotions, or something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah.
So in essence, is consumerism an attack on nature? in essence.
Well, it's worked out that way, I think,
Yeah.
because of the many landfills we have.
When you go in the store, it's just, oh, I'm going to use this, but then there's going to be a bunch of cardboard that I'm going to throw away.
Yes.
Or plastic.
Or
jars, glass jars, glass bottles, which those are better than plastic. So, you know, and no matter how much you reuse them, you can only have so many glass jars.
Yeah.
As you all know, because sometimes I'm like, there's too many glass jars in this house. But it's, I mean, I think it's not just, the stores and the fact that there are many, many, many different items to choose from. Like, how many peanut butters do we really need, guys? I mean, seriously, you know, like you look at the shelves in some stores and it's just like, which one do I choose from? Right. There's too many choices.
Just pick all of them.
Right. But
damn it.
But there's too many choices, right? And that's
too many. Yeah.
That's a problem, because then you're inundated with too much information, too many choices, and then you end up buying maybe too much, which is probably what they're trying to get you to do. It's a marketing tactic, but but you know, the thing is, we're also manufacturing weapons at an accelerated rate, and that is also hurting the earth. Right. And so we're consuming, right, the idea of having lots of weapons at our fingertips. And we've just had, 2 more shootings that have gone on in Texas and Alabama,
count, which is sad.
You know, I mean, this just happened, right? So, I mean, people are dying, and, you know, at some point we're probably going to have to get into the whole idea of guns versus, or, you know, having guns versus background checks versus, you know, some sort of gun control versus no control whatsoever.
Listen, I'm a bow and arrow guy. That's all I need. Shoot you in the leg and run.
That's right.
Goodbye, baby.
So, and that probably will not harm the environment so much, will it? So, yeah, I do think that this God in consumerism is hurting nature tremendously. I mean, all we have to do is look at climate change, and there you go. There's your answer.
Yeah, all you got to do is go in your local store and cry.
Right.
In the ice cream aisle.
Many choices of ice cream too.
Many choices. I recommend the mint chip.
This is what we call capitalism,
any
right?
brand mint chip.
Capitalism means many choices.
Yeah.
So,
that gets us into our next little question. Can capitalism exist without consumerism? If not, then is consumerism justified?
Can capitalism exist without consumerism?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
No.
I think the premise of capitalism is to consume, right?
Right. Yeah.
I mean,
I'd say so.
It's producing lots of things, and who's supposed to consume it?
Okay, what does capitalism mean exactly?
Oh, that's deep. What does capitalism mean, Barbara? She's looking away.
She's like looking out the window like, look at that roses.
I saved the roses, and they're growing very tall.
They're growing very tall.
Dangerously tall.
Dangerously.
Yes. We're
plant people. We're plant people.
Reusing.
Yeah.
My uncle has a whole agricultural backyard. It's a jungle out there. It's awesome. A jungle out there.
Yes, it is. But
what is capitalism?
It's mostly edible.
What is capitalism, Barbara?
It's a free market society.
You're the one with 3 master's degrees. Let's look at her.
I don't have a master's degree in economics.
That's
however.
okay.
True. But did I just say something?
I think what you said was very intelligent. Let's go with
free market.
Free market society, and so you've got market in there. What do you have to market, right? Somebody's got to consume what you're selling, right? And
I'll do it. I'm just kidding.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck you. No, sorry.
Language. Anyway, what were we gonna say?
No, I am not. I'm thinking.
You're thinking. So, I mean, I think our whole economy is based on consumption and based on capitalism, and that's what people talk about, and that's how people defend this right to hurt nature, hurt the earth, because, well, we're capitalists.
We're capitalists.
That's what we do. And the problem is that what we'll find is economists might say, okay, in order to make the economy better, we need people to go out and shop. That's what we need to do, and that stimulates the economy. So clearly, what are you shopping for? You're not shopping for air. You're not shopping for something.
You may be buying a house,
right?
Or a car,
exactly. So you need to do that in order to stimulate the economy. That's why George W. said go out and shop, because he wanted to stimulate the economy and tell people not to be afraid of, any bad people coming to this country and hurting us, because we're safe to shop.
Well, it's the issue too of everything being privatized, or as much as possible. Now we pay taxes,
right?
I don't.
Well, you will.
You will.
I will.
You will. Yeah.
Very soon.
And I really don't want to, actually.
Yeah, well, if you
I
get
know,
a job...
I know where that money goes.
If you get a job, you're going to have to pay
the whole
taxes.
point,
I know where it goes.
that I'm trying to make is we pay taxes.
Right.
And we have very little say over how our taxes are spent by the governments. Is that right?
Well, they will say, but hang on a second, Barbara, it's a democracy and you go and you vote for this and that and the other.
And we still are not getting any say over how our taxes are spent, how they're used.
Yes.
People talk about Eisenhower socialism. Under Eisenhower, we were still a capitalist economy, but the taxes were such that they were being used on, well, building the I-40, for example, came out of that era. It's slightly post-dated Eisenhower, because, let's see, we moved to California in 1966 from Chicago, and we came out on Route 66.
Route 66.
Which was then replaced by the I-40 after that period. But the point of building things for people to use for the good of society, that pretty much came out of that era and even before. So now almost all our taxes go to military. They go to weaponry. We're not getting enough. We have Social Security and Medicare, but they keep wanting to take those away from us.
Right.
So when do we get to say how our taxes are spent? Why do we have to pay taxes?
Right. And then we're not taking care of, we put it towards the military, but then what about all these people that come back and they have post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, right? They're going to the VA,
homeless.
They're living, homeless. It's horrible what we do to those that have served our country.
We have always done that. Yeah.
I mean, my God, it's sickening how we treat them. Yeah. These are people that went to serve and give their lives for our country, and how dare we not treat them with reverence and the utmost of respect by giving them decent medical care and providing them with a home to live and providing them with feeling as though they matter and they can make meaning out of their lives and feel that love that some people believe is the concept of God.
Yeah.
Instead, we would like to make more weapons and send more people overseas to go and use them.
That's how we treat our warriors.
Yeah.
We throw them away.
Disrespect.
And that's how we keep more consumers, right? That's a very interesting way of government controlling us. This is how we treat our warriors.
Right.
You don't want to be a warrior unless you're damaged.
Yes.
If you're damaged, come with us.
Keep consuming.
Keep consuming.
Keep consuming. And yeah, if you're damaged, then
come with
we'll
us. Take care of you.
We'll take care of you. Wink, wink.
Wink, wink. Hint, hint.
Yeah.
There's 1 million of us. I'm being very comical this episode. I just think,
You're being, you're.
It's okay.
Yeah. No, it's lovely. It's lovely to see you this way.
Very lovely. Yeah. I think so.
Yeah. It's a little, I don't want to say belligerent, but,
Well, it is
I
what
must
it is.
say, I enjoyed your drum duet earlier today. That was really good. I'm really happy to see you drumming together and in public. You got a standing ovation.
Thank you.
And you were singing the tune of Miserlou, Summer, and I really enjoyed that.
Thank you. Well, we are the Bayat Beat, guys.
We
are the Bayat Beat.
Hell yeah.
So.
Well, I have another question.
Oh, okay.
They want to end. They want to end. We've gone over an hour.
Your grandmother is tired.
We've gone over an hour. They're like, this is only supposed to be 36 minutes.
I want to put on the air conditioning.
That's our average. That's
the air
average.
conditioning.
Yeah,
okay.
It's warm. That's
One more
right.
question. We're going to end on a happy note.
Okay.
I think it'll be happy because I think we know the answer to this question.
Okay.
Are we moving away from consumerism with the minimalist movement and a radical policy change by the youth, by the way? Radical policy changes and advocacy for protection of our environment.
If the youth stick to their guns. Oops.
Oh, but
bad metaphor.
Right.
You mean these guns?
No, if the youth continue in that direction and are committed to these ideas, we will move away from it. But
we need to be educated.
Yes.
In the meantime, people are still consuming a lot. I mean, our lives are built around that. You go into other countries, for instance, where, like in the Middle East, for instance, right? They may have a big grocery store, right? Like Albertsons, Vons, Ralph's, that type of thing. And then they'll have the little outdoor market that we would call a farmer's market, right?
Bazaar.
The souk, the bazaar, right? And so that can, if we incorporate more of that, and if farmers markets are closer to people, within walking distance, things like that. I know that in areas where there are mostly persons of color, they're going to get the worst stores. They're going to get the stores with the worst food. They're not going to get, the health food store in their community, and they're certainly not going to get a farmer's market. Now, if that is happening and there's a new trend towards that, then I am very happy about that, and I stand corrected. But years ago, I know that was the norm for a lot of my friends in seminary who had grown up that way, where the local store was not giving them the nutrition that they required.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to answer your question, which is, are we moving towards less of a consumer lifestyle society?
Are we moving
with the minimalist
towards
movement?
Yeah.
And the zero waste movement.
Yeah.
I think that a lot more people are transforming themselves. And by doing so, they are saying, hey, I want to be closer to this concept of God. That God does not want me to be damaging Mother Earth and creating climate change.
The holy feminine.
Right? Exactly. And so I think that gives us hope. And that it's started by younger people. in terms of younger people being the ones who are mostly talking about minimalism out there. And, you just can, I mean, again, it's not like YouTube's paying me to say this, but YouTube has got so many videos out there, zero waste, minimalism, tiny homes. And those are, I mean, that's speaking my language, and I'm not like a teenager or in my 20s.
Yeah.
So I
You're
know
29.
I know I look it. No, I'm just kidding. Anyway, but that speaks my language because that makes me feel closer to the divine. That makes me feel closer to nature. If I could live in my tiny home on this big piece of land and create my own garden, my Garden of Eden that feeds me, right? All my food, and I don't need to go to the grocery store with all those choices, right? Then that's moving us away from consumeristic lifestyles.
Yes.
And yes, moving us away from consumerism, and that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. Now, there are corporations who would disagree with me, but
but they're in power,
right? And they are in major power, and they're the top percentage of our income brackets, and they are getting major tax cuts. So do I really care what they think? No.
People, listen to your intuition and listen to the rose plant outside your house.
Yes.
Okay?
The rose plant speaking.
The rose plant speaking. The ladybug is speaking. The coyote is speaking.
And some would argue those are the ancestors too.
And those
speaking
roses
to us.
happen to have a very nice scent.
And they respond to coffee grounds. So take your coffee. If there's anything you need to learn, is use a reusable, right? Reusable coffee. What is that thing called? Filter. Coffee filter. And then take the grounds and put it in your rose bush, and they will grow.
They will grow tremendously tall, taller than you, and you will see how little you are.
Exactly. In the
and your
grand
ego
scheme
will
of
be
things.
destroyed. So people, connect to your wild man if you're a man, or connect to your wild woman. Okay?
Or connect to your wild whatever gender you are.
Whatever.
Yes.
Be wild. Love nature. Give a rock a hug. Because who hugs trees? Anyways, this has been great. We are over an hour in. And we are the Bayat Beat.
Good night, Arnold.
Good night, Arnold.
Good night, Arnold.
Well,